One of my favorite contemporary bands is the band Vulfpeck. They bursted onto the scene a couple of years ago with a blend of awesome, groovy, funky, retro, but modern stuff. And from the moment I heard their first song, I was a fan. And in this video, we're going to talk about their drum sound, how we can recreate it in our home studios, but also how you can become a better musician by giving them $1. And this is not $1, this is a €5 bill, because I'm from Amsterdam, so, you know, symbolic. The quest for groove. So y'all probably heard of this website called Bandcamp, right? It's this place where bands upload their music and you can download their stuff and support them. And Vulfpeck also has a Bandcamp page where you can download all their music. But what many people don't know is that they also have a page called wolfstems.bandcamp.com. That's a separate page, and on this page they put a few of their most popular songs, and you can download the stems of those songs, and that means that you can get every track separately. So the guitar separately, drums separately, piano, anything, vocals separately. And that's of course very, very awesome, because you can load all those tracks into your DAW, for example, and then listen to each of them, like, oh, what does the bass do, or how do the drums sound, right? Or you turn the drums off and you grab your pad controller and you play along. And that's, of course, an invaluable thing. It gives you this opportunity to play with these great musicians. I mean, I'm a huge fan of their bass player, Joe Dart. I think he's a beast. And I mean, I wish he was my friend. Anyways, yeah, sure, I wish he was my friend. But, you know, when you don't have friends, you can download the stems and you can pretend you have friends. And that's, you know, the second best thing. Jokes aside, it's common knowledge that if you want to grow as a musician, playing together with musicians who are better than you or are really good at their craft is this awesome tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up their song Deantown in my DAW, because I obviously bought the stems from them. And we're going to listen to their drum sound, try and recreate it, and then we're going to jam along to the song. Let's see what we got real quick by soloing all the tracks. So bass, guitar, keys, and this last track is some sort of synth with some claps, and that leaves us with the drum track. Now let's solo that for a moment and listen to what it sounds like. I spent the last hour trying to recreate this exact drum sound to the best of my abilities, and I'm going to talk about how I did this in a moment, but it might be nice for all of you to know that I also saved everything I did into a preset for Addictive Drums 2 that I'll share with my patrons over on Patreon. So here's a little snippet of what the end result sounds like. So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So let me tell you how I got there. The first thing I thought when listening to the original drums was vintage analog. And after that, I thought 70s, right? And this is a great example of why listening to a lot of different music from different time periods is super helpful if you want to be flexible and fast in your music production. Because if I had not spent some time listening to 70s music, I could not have possibly made that connection. But I did. I made the connection, and because I did, I could immediately take a shortcut, because I knew that in my Addictive Drums 2 library, I had this kit called Vintage Dry, subtitled Authentic 1970s Studio Drums. So, I mean, chances are that this is exactly what we need, right? So I fired that up, and all I had to do was turn down the hi-hat a little bit, and I immediately had a preset that worked for me. So here's a little soundbite alternating between the Vulfpeck drums and the drums that we got so far. And note that I'm not playing the exact same drum part. I usually create the right sound first before I figure out what the exact drum part is, and that's what I did here as well. So here's the example. First of all, if you want to learn how to play the groove you just heard, you should check out this video about learning how to play an easy but awesome disco groove. That's more or less the thing that I'm playing here. And now we can go on with the mixing. The sounds we just heard don't sound exactly alike, but in most cases I would stop here anyways, because in 10 minutes I got a sound that I liked, a sound that works in this recording. So for playing and practicing, this should be more than enough. But just for the sake of the video, I wanted to tweak the sound a little bit and get even closer to the original. And this is where we basically get into some serious drum mixing. And it's beyond the scope of this video to really get into the nitty-gritty details, but let me just summarize what I did so you can at least understand the process of how these things get done. First, I looped that part we just listened to, going back and forth between the Vulfpeck drums and our drums. And first I just listened to the kick drum, and then I just listened to the snare, and then I just listened to the hi-hats. And I tried to determine what changed whenever the beat would switch between my drums and the Vulfpeck drums. And what I noticed was this. One, the Vulfpeck kick drum had much more punch than mine. The Vulfpeck snare was snappier than mine, and the Vulfpeck hi-hats were panned differently and had a different sort of top-end hiss to them than mine. So after I noticed that, I did the following things. I added a trigger sound to the kick drum so that every time I play a kick drum, I would trigger another punchy kick sound as well, which made my whole kick sound punchier. I browsed through my library of different snare drums and eventually picked a snare drum from the Blue Oyster kit instead of using the snare from the 70s vintage dry kit. So I just swapped out the snare and I panned the hi-hats more to the center and I adjusted their EQ curve. Now, that's basically how I ended up with my Vulfpeck drum preset. Over here is another interesting video about drumming with unconventional sounds. For example, stuff that you sampled yourself and a method of determining which pad should trigger what sound. And over here is a video laying out a trick to instantly improve your finger drumming speed. Very interesting stuff. So be sure to check them out. See you next time. Bye.